want to hear more about events like this or hear more about what we're doing, this is how you can get involved. You can, our Green Team email list sign up is that right out front there. You can sign up there. And we're also on social media and on Yammer. So feel free to follow us there. And with that, we're really excited to bring up Mark Wilbert with City of Charleston. You are right here. Yeah. And then I'm not going to try to read your whole title.
That's fine.
You do that, but thank you for coming.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming over. Thank you, John, for having me. So what I want to do today is, well, first of all, let me say with me today in the back is Katie McCain with the City of Charleston. She does all of our sustainability work in the city, and she's working very closely with me on just about everything we're doing in the city. So Katie's a real asset to the city, and particularly to the things that we're working on together. So what I want to do today, you're going to be the first ones to get this kind of revised. How many of you have read or seen our 2015 sea level rise strategy the city put out? So you're going to get a peek into what the new one's looking like. We're working on the new one coming out right now, and we've actually learned a lot in the last 3 years, and I thought this was a pretty safe group to roll that out to, okay, for a whole bunch of reasons. But really what I want you all to do today, this is going to be, we do this presentation a lot, but I've really made it kind of science-y up front, and I did that on purpose, okay, because this is a safe group that I can probably do that to, and you don't get up and walk out on me. And so I'm really interested in your feedback and, you know, all the things you can throw, but I'm just going to give it to you and lay it out there, where it is, what it is. But you guys are really, MUSC is probably like the first place on our list of things we worry about when we talk about sea level rise. Okay, I just want to tell you, that's what we do. We worry about it, we talk about it. You're on the map, and you're going to see all that in just a minute, okay? So the agenda is a little bit about our challenges, and when I say our, I mean everybody, the whole city, everyone in this area. What our strategy is, so we had a strategy, and we started out with Ready, Respond, Reinvest, if you read it. We're changing that now. We're going to go, we're 3 years into this, and we kind of know that those 3 big areas were good for the time, but now that we've really been doing this, it's really kind of 5 pathways, okay? So we've got some new terms here. Anything that's italicized is the new stuff that's coming out, and I'm kind of testing it with you. So this is what I think we've learned, and I say I think we've learned because it's not signed, it's not approved, but I think this is the work, the field of work that we're doing on this business of sea level rise. But you notice something else, flooding. Okay, so in the last 3 years, the conversation has changed. 3 years ago, it was all about sea level rise. We were focused on it. But what's happened in the last 3 years is we've had a bunch of flooding events. Okay, with or without sea level rise, they would have really been bad. Given sea level rise, they were even worse. Okay, so the whole nation, because I do get to go to a few conferences on this stuff, the whole nation is really changing its focus. That these storms that are coming are really starting to cause a lot of damage. People are starting to pay attention, and that's what's happened to us here. 3 years ago, we were kind of wondering, should we roll this out, this sea level rise thing? And it got a great reception. But really now, it's got more than reception. It is, a lot of people in the city would say it's the #1 issue for the city right now, is this business of flooding. And I happen to believe it is as well. So these are our 5 pathways. Land use is #1, not by mistake. Okay, I put that up there, and I'm going to put it up there until they fire me and make me take it down. But, you know, I have this saying that I use all the time that, you know, we can go back with enough money in engineering and fix the mistakes of the past. We can't make mistakes going forward because we'll never catch up. Okay, it's going to take us forever to fix what we did in the past. In the past was really no harm, right? We didn't know what we know today when we started doing what we did back in the 1800s, and we started filling all this stuff in. We thought it was a good idea, right? Probably not a good idea to do that stuff now, but we're smarter now. We know what we should or shouldn't be doing. Capacity, what we're finding out is that this takes a lot of money. So that's capacity in terms of money, but also capacity in terms of people. This is a whole new line of work for a city, for a municipality, for a county, for a state. If you look around the state, there's not a lot of people focused on this issue. If you look around the county, there's not a lot. And I'll show you what the city's done the last 3 years to kind of help fill that capacity. Governance, I'll talk a little more about that. Infrastructure, obviously that's what everybody focuses on, is infrastructure. Where are we building tunnels? Where are we going to pump stuff out? How are we going to do this? That's a part of it, but that's one of 5, okay? And the last one is community outreach. If you don't tell people what you're doing, what are they going to do? They're going to keep asking you what you're doing, and you spend all your time answering those questions one by one, okay? And you never get to the other four. So for me, community outreach and getting the information out to people is just as important as the other four. Let people know what you're doing. So threats are changing. This is not lost on anybody. I was just at a conference in Annapolis. We had I consider some of the best scientists in the world there talking about what's happened the last couple of years. Those statistics in 2017, 17 named storms, 10 hurricanes, 6 major, storm surge all over the place. You look what we're dealing with now. And then you ask the question, is Charleston really ready for a major hurricane? Is it? Is Charleston really ready for a major hurricane? I would like to say that, yeah, we're ready, bring it on. I don't think we're there, okay? Extreme precipitation events are increasing. And that is something that the Dutch were just here. I was talking to, so I got to spend the 2 days. I was kind of their host and guide around the city for 2 days. That's what that's one of the reasons they wanted to come here, was because they wanted to learn about this extreme precipitation because they're beginning to see it in the Netherlands now. So they've always been fending off sea level rise and storms, but now this stuff's happening inland, this extreme precipitation is. So they're really interested in Charleston as a place to come and do some work. Sometimes you go back to April 24th of last year. Did anybody get caught in that April 24th of last year? So it's a day like rings in your head, right? You're like, why? There was no prediction that it was going to be like that. There was nothing. And all of a sudden it shows up, and they're always isolated anymore. Okay, they're in little sections of the city. It's not the whole swath of the city. It's little sections. And those people are there just getting beat up. And people over in Mount Pleasant are on the beach going, what's all the problems? Okay. Nuisance flooding, last 3 years we've set records. 71, 57, and 47 coastal flood advisories. That's not the numbers we should have had. We should have had between 36 and 38. Those are the numbers we actually ended up with. And I'll give you a slide here to show the future. And the interesting thing going to sea level rise, in the last 7 years, 2011 to 2017, the rate of sea level rise at the Charleston Harbor tide gauge, that's the only tide gauge I use. I only use one, because if I use more than one, people call into question what you're doing. The rate of rise has been by a factor of 4, it's increased. So over the last 100 years, sea level rise has increased by 1 foot. In the last 7 years, it's been accelerating by a factor of 4. So things are changing. Now, that's not going to stay consistent. And even the alarmist scientists will tell you that's not going to stay consistent. There's going to be rises and falls, but the trajectory will remain rising at a pretty good rate. So this is Irma, okay? I'm sure you all probably know what you're looking at here. This was storm surge right here when it came in. That was where the tide was supposed to be. Okay, this is feet relative to the high average tide, okay? So we actually were at a low high tide when Irma came in. It was a high tide, but it was lower than some of the highest tides we had. If we would have had a king tide, but Irma did come in right at high tide. Pushed 4 feet of storm surge on, you see the destruction that it did to the city. Do you know what the prediction was for Irma 2 days before it actually hit us? 13 feet coming at high tide. So you saw the amount of water we had at 4 feet. Imagine had it been 13 feet. Okay? We were really, really scrambling with that 13-foot prediction. We were like, wow, this is one of those that you read about, you think about, and then when it's really coming your way, you're like, wow, we really got to get some stuff going here. But this was Irma. Here's some other interesting statistics. These are the top 12 tides ever in Charleston Harbor. Look at number 3, 2017, number 4, 2016, number 11, 2015, and number 6, 2015. What's that telling you? Things are happening, things are changing, high tides are becoming more frequent. These are the number of properties that we had assessed. So after a storm, one of our jobs, we go out and we assess properties for damage. In 2015, there were 219. We're up to 599. 111 roads closed due to Irma. We had over 400 roads closed due to the rain event of 2015. Okay, that begins to wear on a city's economy. It begins to wear on people's quality of life, pace of life. And these are the things that we're factoring in here as this goes along. This is probably the one that I'm most interested in, is this one here. Because everybody talks about sea level rise. This is kind of the unknown. These are the change, focus here on percentage of change, and look down here in the southeast at these different things. So 99th percentile of precipitation, a 27% increase, 49% a number of 5-year, 2-day events. So all of the way that NOAA's tracking the precipitation, the extreme precipitation events throughout the United States, we're getting hit pretty good. Here's 58%, here's 16%. So what you think's happening is really happening, and that's kind of the purpose here. There's no question that these things are beginning to happen. The weather's changing, the seas are rising, and we're beginning to feel the effects here, but also all up and down the east coast of the United States, as well as the Gulf Coast, okay? And I've lived in almost all those locations you see on TV. You see Situate, Mass, that always gets clobbered. My wife and I, that was the first place we were ready to buy a house, okay? It was right there. Then we found out she was pregnant, and I got scared. And we backed off, but we were right there. So then you ask yourself, that looks familiar. Probably a bunch of you probably travel this. In 1970s, we had 2 tidal flood events. Last year, we had 50 plus. I just threw it up. You saw it. 15, 16, and 17 was right around 50 each year. 2040 projection is 180. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean, I want to be clear on that, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to move around, that there's going to be water coming in your doors. But you're probably going to see something like this throughout the city about 180 days a year, okay, by 2040. That's not very far off, okay? Many of you will still be working here at MUSC in 2040, okay? Some of you won't, but, or some of you are hoping you won't, but some of you will still be working here at 2040. This is, again, I talked about the mean sea level rise is going. That represents 1 foot over a century. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You can see this drastic rate of rise right here at the tide gauge in Charleston. Look at that. But like I said, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. But look at that. You don't see that very rarely. Go all the way back to the 1920s, you see it. You see it here. But the trend is what I just showed you here. Even taking those anomalies, right? That's the trend, is it's moving up. So we know we're going to have that. We know it's going to continue. It's by a whole bunch of factors. Ice melt's part of it. If the ice really starts melting the way it is, all bets are off what we're going to do. But that's going to happen about 2070 is the best bet. About 2070, all bets are off. If the ice melts at the rate at the extreme ends. And that'll come, that's right from the lead scientists throughout the United States. As they say, don't really worry about sea level rise until about 2070 in terms of being really, really destructive. But if it happens at the high end, about 2070s, a lot of coastal cities are going to be in a real lot of trouble. Right now, they're more focused on the storm events because those are the killers. We need to be ready to deal with those. So what do we plan for? So if you've read the City of Charleston's sea level rise strategy, we went out, so you have to do these things, right? You got to go out and you got to get your research. You got to figure out, well, who do I trust? Okay? Who's not going to be immediately discarded? And my decision was we're going to go with NOAA and the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay? That's probably the 2 groups that we can count on as a nation to give us the best science when it comes to issues like this. Okay? They have no reason to sway it either way. They're just going to give you good science. Plus, it's going to be repeatable year after year after year. So you're going to be able to go back to the same stuff. Plus, I don't care what you're looking at. The data that they're gathering it from is all coming from NOAA. I mean, NOAA has that data. People are taking it. They're making it look different ways. They're interpreting it differently. NOAA's providing the data. That's just what's happening. So we went ahead and said, okay, we have to figure, we got to put a dot out there. And we have to go on record of saying this is what we're going to plan for. So we chose between 1.5 and 2.5 for 50 years out, okay, of sea level rise. 1.5 are for those things that don't have this huge lifespan. So take a parking lot, okay, or something that can get flooded. Let's build that to about 1.5. 2.5, that's your major critical infrastructure. This new hospital here, I hope that was figured out at about 2.5, 3 feet. I'm hoping it was, okay? Because that's about where we need to be thinking if we want to think way out in the future. My gut tells me we're getting ready to pull the same group. So what we did to get this, we pulled a group of scientists together, and we said, okay, you all pull the science in, and then we're going to sit down together. And this was from the National Weather Service, NOAA, a couple of other PhDs that deal with this stuff. We have one young lady in town who actually wrote the first or second, was on the writing team for the first or second National Climate Assessment, so she really understood it. We said, you tell us what you think based on the data it's going to be. So we came out, and then we had to pick, right? They just show you all the stuff, and then we say, well, we like this, and they say, yeah, that's pretty good gut. So that's what we did. I think it's going to bump up a little bit. We're going to do it again here in another couple of months. I think you're actually, because of that last 7 years, the way it went up, I think it'll probably go up. I think you'll probably hear us coming out in the rewrite to this, which should be out in June, at about 1.5 to 3 is I think where it's going to be. And that's just in 3 years. Okay, but that's what we promised people we would do, is look at the science. When new science became available, there's a new rewrite to the National Climate Assessment that came out, and that's what we did. So this is what's happening along, and I don't even understand what this is, so I don't even want to try to explain it. The NOAA guys did this. I just grabbed their slides this morning. So this is the new range from NCA 4, okay? This is where we are. You can see that, and that's why I'm saying it's probably going to be about 1.5 to 3 is where we're going to end up. So you can see the rewrite based on new science, the way things are trending. It is accelerate, and we probably should be looking a little more than what we're currently looking. So you saw that. You know what that is. Talked about that a little bit. There were 76 initiatives in there. And I got to tell you, it felt really good. So the Dutch came over, and these guys actually read the stuff you send them before they get here. So they get off the plane, and they said, you know, I'm driving them back from there, and said, listen, we've read your sea level rise strategy. If you guys are doing what you say you're doing in there, and that's if's the key word, we don't even need to be here. So that was just kind of a good feeling to get some outside validation that we're, you know, at least on the right thing. They said, there's not many cities, if any cities in the United States, doing what you guys are doing to try to address this. Now, the truth is we're not doing all 76, okay? And we're going to tell everybody we're not doing all 76 when we do this rewrite, okay? We're going to show folks what we are and we're not doing. So this isn't the conclusion. I don't know why it says conclusion, but the conclusion from all this stuff is, one, we need to learn to live with water. That was their big aha moment. Any of you go to the Dutch Dialogue presentation? Did you go? So that was their big aha moment, right? In 1953, the Dutch had a catastrophic water event that killed a bunch of people. And they made a commitment at that time as a nation. They said, this will never happen again. Okay? And we're going to commit all of our resources that we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's how they started their building to hold the seas out. They've since realized that that's probably not a winning strategy. They probably can't spend enough money, probably can't build enough to keep the seas out, so they need to find a way to live with it. I think that's where we're going to end up in Charleston, okay? Resistance, I call it resistance. You know, just holding water out everywhere, that's kind of a losing strategy. We got to find a way to let it percolate in and around us and be part of what we do. The second thing we learned was this is a whole community problem. It's not just a government problem. Individuals, community and businesses, and government and corporate all have a say. Everybody has to be part of this. If you want to live in the city of Charleston, if you want to live in this region, you're going to have to be part of the solution because there's no one entity that can do all of this. And we need a solution, not a collection of widgets. That was from a lady who was the assistant HUD secretary. She said that up in Vermont, and I stole it. I said, you know, and really what that goes to is, she said, you know, as the government looked at this, they didn't want just individual projects. They wanted to see whole solutions. I think really what it is, you need to see pathways to solutions as much as a whole project. So we have a community engagement that's moving on. Obviously, the aquarium's got something going on. We had the Dutch dialogues. How many of you have been following our FEMA grant programs that we've been doing in the city. We're doing some stuff we've never done before. Getting ready to buy 48 homes out in West Ashley. We're going to tear them down and turn it into green space. Okay, these are severe repetitive loss. We're hoping we have more coming up next year and more the year after that. Probably for as long as I'm with the city, I expect we'll be buying homes in severe flooded areas and you know, just going ahead and taking them down and making room for water to come in. NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program. How many of you have flood insurance on your home? Of you, those that do, how many of you seen your flood insurance rates go up? Okay, bad or pretty significantly? Do you live in the city? Ooh, where?
Up near Hampton Park.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we've got some, and I don't want to let everything out of the bag. We get some really cool stuff. We're trying to work with the National Flood Insurance and legislation that we're trying to pilot to maybe make Charleston a pilot city for some help with that. It's not far enough along yet to let it out, but we're trying everything that we can. Building elevations. We've got 2 historic homes already being elevated downtown. 3 years ago, you would have never thought that possible in the city of Charleston. But if we want to preserve it, if we want to keep it, if you want those beautiful homes to be around, we're going to have to do some things differently than we did in the past. Green solutions need to be part of it, and then I'm going to throw land use in wherever I can, whenever I can say it. We've got to make sure that we don't screw the land use thing up. Does this look familiar? So that house isn't that old, is it? That's not a historic property. You can't blame that on fill. You can't blame that on, you know, technology of the 1800s. How old would you say that property is out there? 80s, right? Maybe even the 90s, looking at it. We built whole communities out there, and that's the type of flooding they have out there, okay? We have to be smarter than this, okay? So how do we go about doing that? One, sometime this year, we're going to start a vulnerability analysis. That's going to be our foundation. Now, we all know intuitively kind of where the flooding is going to occur, but the community has to be involved in making the decisions about what's important. And I always ask the question, what makes Charleston Charleston? Okay, what is it you want to protect as a community? Probably going to have to understand we're not going to be able to protect all of it. Okay, that's probably a good entering argument. Everything's not going to be able to be protected. What is it that we protect? How do we protect it so that we can retain this great city that we all love to be in, right? Because we can do that. We're smart enough to be able to do that. The Dutch came, we drove them around for 2 days. They're like, hey, you guys can do this. We got to be bold. You're going to have to think out of the box, okay? We're going to have to talk. We're going to have to do a whole bunch of things, but we can do this, all right? And that's hopefully the effort that we'll be able to kick here. Want to make it risk-based. So I'm the emergency manager guy. I'm always saying we got to start with our most critical assets. Well, I'd say we're at one of our most critical assets right here, okay? This entire complex between here, Roper, and the VA, that's pretty darn important, right? It's not just important to the city, it's important to the whole region, and some of it's important to the whole country, okay? We just need to put that on a map. We need to highlight it. We need to put scope on it, and we need to just say, this has to be protected right here. It absolutely has to be. We can't invest all the money we've done here and not protect it, and that's what this vulnerability analysis should help us pull out. It's going to help us do priorities, but back to risk-based for a minute. So you have to look at what the risk is, and you all understand this, what the risk is to the community if you don't protect things, okay? And that's how you make decisions on where you spend your next dollar, okay? That's my view. You have to make decisions based on risk. If you're not making them based on risk, then everybody wants your next dollar, okay? Everybody does. How as a community do you wind that down to where the next dollar goes? So this tool, when it's done, is hopefully it'll be the arbiter for limited funding. The goal is to reduce the greatest risk with the least amount of effort. Absolutely got to have community stakeholder involvement. It has to be there. And we have to look at both private and public assets as we go along, okay? One of the things that gets lost in the discussion is that the community, the city, has to protect its assets as well. We got a police station right now that if you get an 8.5-foot tide, they can't get in or out of there. That's probably not good. Okay, we get like 4 fire stations we shut down every time it floods. That's probably not good if you look at what's going to happen in 2040. You all can't get patients in and out here when it floods. That's not good. Okay, so we need to be looking at those things and putting those in the vulnerability analysis, pulling the risk out and saying, this is number one community, do you agree? Okay, but then we also look at, we've got these beautiful historic homes, okay, that once, if they go, they never come back. Okay, if we lose those, we never get them back. So where do they fall on this? And then we start figuring out where we're going to put our next dollar first. Not easy to do. We use maps like this. These are the hot spots from, so what these were, this is interesting, 2015 flood, we took reporting from homes that were damaged, and then we put it on these heat maps, and I'll show you a bunch of these here in a minute. And this was the peninsula here. This is Colonial Lake right there, but you can begin to see where things started heating up. And of course, this is all consistent with what? Where we filled in creeks, okay? If you were to overlay the map of 1881 or 1886, it looks just like this, okay? No real shocker there. I told you before about building capacity. One of the things we recommended to the mayor in 2016 was we need to build capacity. We said we need a chief resilience officer, a floodplain manager, another person in emergency management. We need someone in grants that's just going after money for this. We got all four, okay? Next up is sustainability director, and this one I just added this morning, but if you don't write it down, it'll never happen, is mitigation project manager. There's literally billions of dollars coming in the federal budget over the next 3 to 5 years on mitigation projects, but man, it takes a team of people to go out and grab that money and pull it in, so we need to get somebody on board to do just that. How many of you use our road closer information when you come to work? You do? Excellent. Anybody else? All right, well, okay, I'm going to share something with you here. You don't?
I ride my bike.
Okay. Did you ride through the floods, or?
I walked if it's
There you go, okay. So this is important, man. We work really hard on this road closure thing, okay? But I want to share something with you. The road closures only tell you the roads that are closed by police, okay? And you probably have figured that out by now, right?
Yep.
And we only have a limited number of police, and they'll only report it closed if they can stand there and make sure it stays closed. So we've got something that we're getting ready to launch, and Katie and I are working on this, and I'll share it with you here in a minute. Respond, okay, we've got to build capacity to have more people to do door-to-door rescues because we're going to need them. You saw the picture out here of Irma with the trucks coming and getting doctors and nurses and moving them in and blah, blah, blah. We've got to have better ways of notifying people this thing that goes off on its own. And these are things that we're working on, but they're not cheap, okay? This is hard because it's competing against everything else that we do. I'll just go on. We talk about, so on the regulation side, we're doing a lot there. And you probably don't, unless you live in the city, you probably don't see it. So base flood elevations, everybody know what that is? So your home, if you're going to go buy a home, you need to know this, okay? You got to write this down. You're going to go buy a home in the city of Charleston, your home needs to be 1 foot above base flood elevation. Base flood elevation changes based on new FEMA maps when they come and go, okay? We're getting ready to have a new set of maps roll out here within the next year on that. In the city of Charleston right now, it's 1 foot above what FEMA says will flood in a 100-year flood, okay? We're getting ready, I hope, fingers crossed, we're going to go to 2 feet. Okay, so if you build a new home, you do substantial improvements, you got to be 2 feet above. That's probably the easiest way to save money, to save people's homes, is just to raise that. People don't like it, it's more expensive. Builders don't like it, it's more expensive. It's hard, you know, it's a mix, but it's probably the best way. Historic structures, we talked about that. CRS, Community Rating System, that's a whole thing that FEMA's got in place to help you save money on your flood insurance. We just moved down 2 notches 2 years ago, saved everybody 20% on their flood insurance rates. You probably didn't notice it because FEMA jacked the rates up at the exact same time, but it would have been 20% worse had we not done that. When we do redevelopment, we want it to be to new standards, blah, 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 blah. And the big thing is going to be roads and access, okay? We have a ton of work to do there. Who owns all the roads in the city of Charleston? DOT owns all the roads, Okay, county owns a few, and the city owns even a smaller amount. So it's really an issue we deal with the state. This is what I wanted to share with you, okay? So think of the future, 180 days a year. So we entered into this challenge, competition actually. Michael Bloomberg, who is very clear, he likes Charleston, okay? He does. He comes to us with a lot of cool ideas, lets us do things. So we started out on a challenge with them. It's called, what's it called, City? The Idea Challenge? Is that what it is, Katie? Mayor's Challenge. Mayor's Challenge. So the deal is, you as a city come up with an idea that's going to make your city better, solves a problem, but it can be transferable to other cities. And he gives you, so you start out, right, you write your idea up, then they narrow it down to 35 cities. We got one of the 35 cities. If you become one of the 5 cities, which we're now in that competition, you either get $5 million or $1 million to really make it work. So this is our idea. And Katie got a chance to pitch this. She was our pitch woman. We all went up to New York for a week, about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and she got to pitch this to the chairman and CEO of Walt Disney Corporation, Bob Iger, one of the guys sitting at the table, right? So what'd you have, about 2 minutes notice? We said, Katie, you're going.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised.
And so he was sitting at the table along with a bunch of other people. It was really cool. And she got to go and pitch our idea. So our idea is, our problem is Charleston experienced flooding up to 50 days a year. It's going to go to 180. What does it cause us? Increased traffic congestion. Those of you that have been stuck in traffic know what that feels like. Loss of productivity, business interruption, property damage, strained city resources, blah, 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 okay? So it's essential for our community to learn to adapt and to live with water. This is about adapting, okay? So the idea is we want to create a data-driven alert system that you hold in your hand, you can put it anywhere you want, I don't care where you put it, that's specifically tailored to you, where you live, where you got to go, what time you got to get there, when you come home. And this system will tell you, to the best of its ability, whether there's going to be flooding there, and if there is, how you might get around it, okay? Or what you might do to avoid it. So it's about adapting, okay? So we want to get employers as well as employees involved. Because some of it may be, can you just delay work today? This flood will be gone by 8:30, 9 o'clock. Does everybody really have to drive through it at 7 o'clock? That's not a very smart city, right? So how do we become a smarter city if we can provide the data, put it in people's hands where they can begin to make those decisions? It's tough on the peninsula to offer people alternative routes. I will say we've been out looking. It's tough here, okay? It's really hard on the peninsula. So that's our idea. MUSC, we want MUSC to be our largest stakeholder in this idea. We're going to talk to John about this after the meeting because it's important to have stakeholders. But the example we use, and forgive me, I say it's either single mom, single dad, nurse, lives in Mount Pleasant, works at MUSC, has 2 kids. Okay? How can life be any more stressful than that to start with? And throw into the fact that you come over the bridge, because I come from Mount Pleasant every day, you get off the exit at Morrison, and there you're stuck. And there's nowhere to go. Everywhere you turn, there's water up to your door, and you're thinking, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? This is dumb. That's what I say every day I see it. I'm like, this is dumb. We have to be better than this. This is our idea to solve it. Hopefully we can get it done, and hopefully Mike Bloomberg is going to help us pay for it. So let's talk a little bit about reinvesting. This is what everybody wants to. How many of you would be interested in being in the pilot on that, by the way? Okay, because we're gonna be reaching out. We've hired a recruiter. We'll hire a recruiter in the next day or so. We're actually going to be reaching out to folks who commute to MUSC, commute to this area, and ask them to be participants in helping us redefine our idea. There's a process we have to go through in order to win the $1 million, and hopefully we can get MUSC on board to do that. So let's just talk real quick about this because everybody wants to hear about this, so we'll talk about this. Seawall Rebuild, this is where we spend all our money. Seawall Rebuild, our buyouts I talked about, it's about a $13 million project, buying 48 homes. It's a lot of money. Those people really need relief, and we're really excited that we're able to give it to them. Structural elevation, roads and bridges, public-private partnerships. So short-term strategy, you'll hear the mayor talk about this because this is really cool. We spent about $1 million in the last 3 years, and we're really fixing some of the flooding downtown that has been going on for probably 50, 60 years. Okay, and what we're finding out is you've got sea level rise coming up. These pipes were gravity systems. So as sea level rise comes up, it goes in the pipes, it rains, water can't get out, so now your rainwater is just sitting there. Or in some parts of the city, many of them, Lockwood being one of it, water comes up just on a high tide, covers the whole road, okay? Over by the Citadel is the worst. Right there is just terrible over there. So this guy, we got an engineer in the city, Frank, who's been, this is like his pet project. Frank is the coolest guy in the world. So he's been out putting these backflow preventers in and really making a difference. But what's cool about this is the city of Charleston, as old as it is, has all these old systems of pipes. We really don't know really where each one is yet, or if each one's working, okay? And so these are old diagrams, and Frank's going down with cameras and trying to figure out where they are, and he's putting these systems back together. And as he puts them back together, he's figuring out where the backflow preventers will work and where they won't, and it's actually working, and it's pretty cool. And he's putting some temporary pumps in, so when we have these big events, we can bring the pumps in and pump it out quicker, like down by Colonial Lake, which is really a pretty tough area over there. And then we're looking at this business of temporary flood protection. People are talking about that. That's a tough one, man. How do you build something that's temporary that can withstand 4 foot of storm surge, 5 foot of storm surge, and still be there when the storm surge is gone? It's just really hard. I've done some research. I've had some folks fly in, look at our stuff in the city. We have a lot of area that we would need to put that around. So we're still going to look, try to figure out ways to do that. And then if you stop it, the water's just going to go around it. Now you've trapped it in. So it's really hard, but we're working on it. Low battery seawall. How many have heard about this project? Okay. So we're going to do the entire length of the current low battery. We're going to raise it 2.5 feet with a possible, we're looking at some designs so that we can raise it easier in the future. So build a little bigger, stouter, so as sea level rise goes up, we can make it a little more. Total project is going to be less than 10 years. It's 10 years at current funding levels. Total price estimate's right around $100 million right now. So you all can do the math. We get about $10 million a year, and it's a $100 million project. That's about as fast as we can go. If we had $100 million today, we could probably build it about 2.5 days, or 2.5 years. Don't let the people down there hear me say that, because they will all want it done. We've been going back and forth on the designs. Have any of you seen the designs? They're pretty cool designs, right? So we're really going to make it a nice place where you want to go. We're going to create more room to walk. We'll lose a little bit of traffic. Parking will be a little tougher. But it's going to be a really nice place to go and walk and look out over the seawall and do the things that you need to do. So the design was important on this. It took a little bit longer to come up with the right design. Calhoun West is where you all are. This is the very northern edge. I think it's northern edge of Calhoun West. It'll be the largest drainage project ever done in the city. $200 million is what the cost is going to be. We've already spent $1 million on engineering, preliminary engineering. We're going to spend $3.5 million this year, get some more engineering done. That's a lot of money, $200 million. Is we're going to go down 140 feet in the ground. So our tunnels go down 140 feet. We get into the marl, and then we go horizontal at about anywhere between 14 to 40 feet, the size of the tunnels. Marl is excellent soil to build tunnels in. Tunnelers like marl, but it's hard getting down to it, okay, because our top layer of soils is not great for tunneling. So that's the plan. They've done a lot of really good engineering work. But again, you can do the math, $200 million. Plus, you just can't tear up the whole city all at once. I mean, this is a big part of the peninsula that's going to, just take a lot of work to get done. So we're out looking for ways to get funding help. And this is a slide for one of the community organizations, because that's what they want to know is where's the money coming from. So I figured I'd throw this in. If you're not interested, I'll make it quick. So in the city, we've been raising property taxes and stormwater fees over the last 3 to 5 years. Mayor Riley, right before he left, raised property taxes, which gave us $2 million more, just dedicated just to drainage projects. This past year, we've raised stormwater fees to give us another $2 million. So we've increased $4 million a year in just 3 years to dedicate to these projects. So we've gone from $8 million to $12 million a year. Last year we spent last year we spent $23 million, I believe. I think I'm right on that, in drainage projects in the city of Charleston. That's a lot of money, okay, went into that fund. Hang on a second. Oh, there's supposed to be one more slide in there. Sorry about that. Okay. So that's where the money is. We also went, so I guess it's the first bullet up there. This first one, Senator Kimson, we went out to this State House the other day. So all of the tourists that come into town that eat and stay here, they get taxed. We all get taxed if we eat here, but right? So, but in the state of South Carolina, they like to control how we can spend that money. So there were 6 categories for the ability to spend that money, and you had to spend it in a tourism district. We added a 7th, and so far it's made it through the full Senate without any objections. We just got to get it moving on the House side. We'll get it together and hopefully be able to spend the 7th would be tourism-related money. It's the percentage of it, because most of it's spoken for on drainage projects and flood reduction projects, which will help accelerate all of the things that I've just talked to you about. So that's one way we're looking to help accelerate this. So what does it look like for the future? Right now, we get the things ongoing that are happening. We got to get this vulnerability analysis done, which will start sometime in 2018. Hopefully, we'll get that into the comp plan update. And then at some point in the future, we're going to do an entire rewrite of zoning in the city. And that's going to really be the way that we kind of get our arms around how we make Charleston look like what it needs to look like for the future. This is not easy. This is not cheap. Just redoing that zoning update may be as much as $1 million just to rewrite it. And Katie does this. Is that about right, Katie?
Yes,
And how long is it going to take a big team of people to come in and do it?
probably about a year.
About a year just to rewrite all our zoning laws. So it's a big, but that's really at the end of the day, that's where we need to get to. So we're moving down a path to get there. We're not stopping, and that was the other thing that the Dutch patted us on the back for. They said, we travel to around a lot of cities. We see a lot of people writing plans. They spend 3 to 5 years writing a plan, but they've never really done anything. And we've taken a different tact, which is we've got existing plans. We're going to do good work to update them as we go along, but intuitively we know kind of what the next thing is we need to do. And so we're just continuing to work on it. We're not going to wait for some big gigantic plan at the tune of $3 million to tell us where to go. We're starting to work on it. Been working on it for about 20 years. And with that, is what the Navy uses: armor, adapt, or abandon. Okay, I kind of roll those words out and see people's response to those. Okay, but that's what the Navy is using in their civil engineering projects right now. You either build seawalls to armor what you want to protect, you adapt, raising homes, learning to live with water, or you decide to move out. And that's kind of it's probably in military terms the best way you could use it. Those are the things that we're putting in place, and that's kind of the way we roll our plan out. So keep your eyes peeled. The next plan will be out in June. By the end of June, it should come out, and I encourage you to take a look at it. And with that, I'll take any questions. We've got about 12, 13 minutes.